Can the United States really stay on the sidelines as Israel and Iran edge toward full-scale war? What factors could draw the United States into the conflict? On June 13th to 14th, 2025, Israel launched airstrikes on Iranian nuclear and military facilities, including Natanz and Fordo, in the largest military operation against Iran in decades. Israel's stated goal was to cripple Iran's uranium enrichment capabilities and prevent its nuclear weapons program, yet many of Iran's facilities are deeply buried, requiring precision bunker-busting bombs, which Israel lacks. Despite the intensity of Israel's strikes, without U.S. assistance, the deepest facilities remain unreachable. On June 15, 2025, Trump suddenly left the G7 summit in Canada and returned to Washington to hold a Situation Room meeting. In an interview with ABC News, he said, "We are not involved. We may get involved, but we are not yet." Although Trump insisted on not starting a new war during his campaign, he has opened the door to increasing U.S. military support. But American hawks openly called for all-out support. South Carolina Republican Senator Lindsey Graham said on the Face the Nation program on June 15th, "If diplomatic efforts fail, we are left with the option of force, and I urge President Trump to do everything he can to ensure that after this operation, the Iranian nuclear program will no longer exist. If that means providing bombs, then provide bombs. If that means joining forces with Israel, then join forces with Israel." Graham was the main architect of the 2003 Iraq War. His advocacy shows that the United States is striving for direct combat participation, or at least a significant increase in material and intelligence forces. So under what circumstances might the United States be drawn into the war? Based on the United States' past behavior and arrogance, we can predict that when Iran shows 1. Strikes on U.S. personnel or bases Iranian proxies in Iraq, Kurd-backed militias or Syria target U.S. troops or advisors, a single fatality could trigger a retaliatory strike on Tehran's assets. 2. Threats to commercial shipping. The Strait of Hormuz and Red Sea remain flashpoints. Attacks by Houthi rebels on merchant vessels led to U.S. cruise missile strikes earlier this year. A repeat could escalate U.S. engagement. 3. American civilian casualties. An estimated 622,000 U.S. citizens live in Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza. A missile killing American civilians would ratchet pressure on Trump to act for attacks on U.S. allies. A strike on Jordanian or Saudi territory or on their energy infrastructure could draw Washington in under mutual defense pacts. 5. Iran's nuclear breakout. Renewed or expanded uranium enrichment beyond the 3.67% threshold would revive fears of an imminent bomb and bolster arguments for a preemptive U.S. strike. 6. When Israel is at a clear disadvantage. That is, if it is not rescued, Israel will have no choice but to surrender, although the chance is slim. One more question: will Israel adopt a regime change strategy? Regarding the alleged assassination plot, a recent report by the Associated Press revealed that Trump vetoed Israel's request to assassinate Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei, both Jerusalem and the White House claimed. Israel's current targets are mainly Iranian Revolutionary Guard commanders, nuclear scientists and Revolutionary Guard bases. If they turn to decapitation operations against senior political figures, the conflict will enter a new and more dangerous phase. However, Trump warned Iran that if it refused to negotiate, it would take more brutal strikes, but also made it clear that Khamenei would not be assassinated at this time. The conflict began with Israel's accusation that Iran would have nuclear weapons. Will the current diplomacy over nuclear negotiations return? April 12, 2025 to date, U.S.-Iran negotiations in Muscat, chaired by Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, have reached a preliminary agreement, with Iran proposing a preliminary three-step plan. reducing uranium enrichment in exchange for sanctions relief and unfreezing frozen assets. The Israeli attack interrupted the negotiations. A senior Iranian negotiator was killed in the airstrike, further strengthening Tehran's position. On the optimistic side, Iran may offer to re-engage if Washington shows that it can control Israel. But on the pessimistic side, Tehran believes that the United States is an accomplice in the attack, which makes any reconciliation politically harmful. Netanyahu is currently unwilling to cease fire, otherwise he will have no legitimacy as prime minister. Let's take a look at Iran. What are Iran's proxies doing? Lebanese Hezbollah rockets have been fired at northern Israel. A full-scale mobilization could open a second front. Hamas in Gaza and Syrian militias could renew attacks, stretching Israeli defenses and inviting U.S. logistical support. Yemeni Houthis have launched missiles at Red Sea shipping. U.S. carrier task forces could be drawn back in. Expect the unexpected. Iran's network of allied militias can open multiple fronts, each tempting new U.S. commitments. In addition, from the perspective of U.S. strategic interests and domestic politics, Trump's dilemma, balancing his America First anti-war pledges against hawkish pressure and geopolitical realities, congressional pushback, bipartisan resolutions from Sense Kane, Sanders, Massey, and Canna to restrict war powers, yet no consensus on a path forward. MAGA rift, key influencers Carlson, Green warn against entanglement, while others Graham, Cruz urge decisive action. As fires burn from Tehran to Tel Aviv, America stands at a crossroads. Stay the reluctant supporter or choose to tip the scales. In the coming days, watch for proxy attacks on U.S. interests, shipping lane strikes, and renewed uranium breakthroughs. Those events may well decide whether the U.S. truly joins the Israel-Iran war, opening a chapter no one can afford to lose. That's it for today. Subscribe for real-time updates.